Life Fixers. Hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, your partner, and your marriage? Yes, you will today. Today we will in the concept of money. I know we did quite a few episodes on this in the past, and today we're taking it from a different angle. Are you ready to retire yet? Oh, yes. Today we meet a couple, Chris and Kim, who work together to retire by the age of 40. You can get Chris' books, Choose FI Financial Independence, at Amazon or on his blog at caniretireyet.com. Thank you so much, Chris and Kim, for being here. I'm excited to be here speaking with you. You want to start by telling us how you guys met?
That was a blind date. Actually, we almost didn't meet. A friend of mine in high school had a crush on Chris's friend in high school, and she thought she'd be able to date him if she could set me and Chris up. And so I was working and there was some friends getting together, and I thought, I'd rather do that. And so I was not going to show up. Then I found out that she was at my house with him, and I thought, I guess I need to show up. And so I left the party with my friends, and I went down to my house, and there she was hanging out with him for a while, waiting on me.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting start because I knew her friend a little bit and I thought she was kind of crazy. So that was like one strike against her. And so I don't know why I even agreed to do that. And then I stuck around after meeting her family. And yeah, it was an interesting way to meet.
And how many years you married?
It'll be 20 in September.
Oh, wow. Congratulations on
Yeah.
that. Okay, so Chris, you want to tell us how you got involved in this whole thing with money and retiring early?
Mostly by accident, I think. We both grew up in families with pretty similar means. We didn't have like a ton of money for either of us. For my family, though, my mom was just really frugal, good at stretching a dollar. And so like my parents really kind of pounded it into my head. Like we just wanted to be debt free. And like, I remember like as a kid, they paid off their mortgage and it was something we talked about and we kind of celebrated as a family.
So it wasn't like marriage was a taboo topic.
No. And money wasn't. So like that was kind of something that they impressed upon me. And I'll let Kim kind of share her money background and kind of what she brought into the marriage.
Yeah, for me, it was very different. My parents didn't do very well with money. And there was 4 of us kids and then my parents, and they've always struggled with money. And so we didn't have very much. I know if we wanted anything, you had to get a job. So I had a paper route 10 years old, because you want some things. And that was just the way it goes. I bought my own prom dress or whatever. So I've always had jobs. I've always worked. But I think my goal was to never have to live like that, where you're kind of struggling for money, or like feel like you need to go to the food bank to get food or anything like that. I just didn't want that life for me or my future family. And so I think what that did to me, it made me just want to earn and save and save and save, because I saw my parents in so many situations where they just didn't have the money to pay for things, and it goes on the credit card, and then they're in so much debt. At one point, I think they even had to file bankruptcy just to clear everything. So yeah, I just didn't want that. And it's funny because I feel like some of my other siblings are the same way I am. I have one brother that wanted me to get a credit card because he's like, no way.
Yeah, totally the opposite extreme, like the trauma hit him too much. So what happened when you each had your own backgrounds and you got married and you viewed money really differently by then?
Yeah, so I think so we dated through college. So I knew very well like how she was and what she was doing. And she was working full time while going to school full time, putting herself through school. And so I knew she was really responsible. But like I said, like my parents, like it was just like debt was like just such a big no. And so it kind of freaked me out. Like she probably had $20,000 in student loan debt, maybe 15, something like that.
I think it was about 20, a little bit more, but I was paying it like he said, I worked full time while going to school. So I was trying to pay some of my tuition and not take so many loans out. But I think all in all, I ended with about 20,000.
Yeah. And then she also had so she was working she actually was like an assistant bank manager while going to school full time. And so she had to get like a car, and she had a real, like very cheap, small, but a used car loan. And so like just being married, going in with debt kind of freaked me out. So I just approached her.
You didn't have debt from college?
No, my parents were able to help me, and I got scholarships, and I also worked. And so just through a combination of things, I was able to graduate debt free. And she didn't have a lot of debt, but it was enough that like I just knew I didn't want to have debt. And so I approached her, and we kind of just developed a system. Like, so she graduated a year ahead of me and started earning not a lot of money, but like an entry level salary, enough that, she was living off of and starting to pay down her debt. And I was still, while going to grad school, I was working part time and making some money. So we just agreed, like everything I made, I would help her and I would pay off her debt. And she was like supporting us. Like we were both living off of her salary, and it worked. And probably like my first or second paycheck, my real paycheck when I became a physical therapist, we got out of debt. And so we just kind of decided to continue doing that. Like first we were just, I think, saving for a down payment, and then like started kind of like paying ahead on our mortgage and investing. And we just always lived off of her salary and saved mine forever.
So it's one salary saved and one salary that gets saved, and then one salary that's used and one salary that gets saved. And then you use that money later on.
Yep. And like there was no grand plan. Like, so what I now do, I write, it's called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. And that wasn't really a thing. I don't even know how much the internet was a thing. Where it was like, this was like 2001, I guess I got out of school in 2000 for her. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a thing like where we had this grand plan. I wish I could say like we were some geniuses that figured this out. But I think like, again, it was just so pounded into me by my mom. And for Kim, I think it was just security that we liked saving, and it felt good.
Yeah, and we both had the modest backgrounds where we didn't feel like we needed anything fancy. I think a lot of people, as you start to make money, especially when you graduate college, are, oh, I want to go get this nice car. And they give you loans that you probably shouldn't afford, or houses or anything, or you want the nice clothes. And we've always just grown up so modest. And I don't feel like either of us felt that we needed that stuff. We were very happy the way that we were, as long as we were eating and we had some clothes to wear and a car that moves, we were good to go.
Right. So let's say when you would get raises, would that go into upgrading your lifestyle, or also would go into savings?
I think that usually went into savings. So when I was working at the bank while I was in college, we had a security guard there. And I think he just kind of liked to look out for me because his daughter is fully grown. And he started telling me about the 401k plan at the bank and how I should really start saving. And so I thought, okay, even if it's a little bit, I'll start doing that. And he would give me some of that advice. And I never felt the need to upgrade anything at all.
I'll kind of disagree with that though, because like, so when we started, so she had a bachelor's in math. And so she was working at an actuarial firm. Mm-hmm. It was a very entry level position, probably making like mid 30s. And I was a physical therapist in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh has a couple PT schools. So the salaries were very low. So I was making about the same, about mid 30s, low 40s when I graduated. But over the next, I would say 5 years, so she got 2 more degrees, and we moved out of the city where I could up my salary. So we probably each doubled our salary. We maxed out like in the $80,000 to $90,000 range. And so we did definitely increase our lifestyle. Like we traveled a lot more. We're not like super frugal. We started skiing and stuff like that, but we always banked one and we always saved one. But we did definitely, I think we inflated our lifestyle. But we kind of like locked in our housing, and we never did get fancy cars or anything. It's like our core expenses we kept the same, but like the fun stuff, I think we upgraded.
Live life still,
yeah. Like it wasn't like we were like living like college students the whole time. We definitely elevated our lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess I was picturing when you said that, did you go out and buy the BMW? Did you, go out and upgrade your wardrobe and stuff? So that's how I was thinking. But yeah, he's absolutely right. We started going on a lot of trips and traveling. It's something we both wanted to do. And so I guess part of our increases went towards that. But to that point, we would still save those increases, our salaries. And then when we wanted to do something, the money was there to do it.
Right. So when you went to do your next 2 degrees, that was from money that was saved.
Oh, no, no. I took advantage of the work plans that we had. So where I went to, where I worked at that time, I was able to have them pay for my MBA. And I would have to pay, they would only cover so much and I have to pay a little bit, but I had the savings to do that. So I got the MBA through them. And then, oh yeah, I got the master's. I have a master's in operations research. I also got it through that company. And so I just took advantage, of the benefits. Why not,
Yeah, working smartly. So what do your kids think of this? What do they think of their parents? Like I'm sure you talk about money in your house. Also, you especially, Chris, doing what you do full time. And
Yeah, so our daughter's 8. Like I know, like as we kind of tell our story, I think like as we look back again, my parents never really like hounded me. We didn't talk about money all the time, but like the big milestones and just seeing how they lived, like we did talk about cars. Like my parents always drove used cars and kind of talked about how cars wasn't a big deal. And like I said, they talked about the mortgage and like, and definitely see how that played forward for us. And then for Kim, like the negative experience, I think kind of still to this day, I think affects her. And so like, I think we don't probably talk to our daughter a whole lot, but we just try to, I think, set a good example. And like we do allowance, we do some little things, but I think most kids don't really want to listen to their parents. I know I didn't. And I doubt like as she becomes a teenager, she's going to want to really listen to us. So I think for us, it's more about setting an example than it is about necessarily overt lessons.
Yeah. And we tell her some things here and there. Like we're trying to teach her. So here's an example. She gets an allowance. And we told her, you could save some, you could spend some, you could spend it all, it's up to you. And it's a very little amount every week, but for an 8-year-old, money's money. And so she sees how we donate money to charities. And so she saves a portion of that and it's going to a charity. I've told her about my background in the food banks and stuff. So she wants to give to the food banks. She wants to give to the animal shelters. I'm a big animal person and I donate to them. So she's trying to model that behavior. And then she also saves a portion of it every week. And then she only takes a little bit. And she's seeing that, I think, like Chris said, as an example of how we do our thing. And we try to tell her every now and then, she'll say to us, I want to do more stuff with you guys. I'm like, you're really lucky that you have us around as much as you do. When we grew up, our parents were working all the time and they weren't home when we came home from school. They weren't around very much because their hands were full with their job. And so we kind of tell her how we saved and now it gives us more time with her. And I think just those little stories here and there that we tell her, it sticks. When you have a kid that young, things stick in their brains. And so, yeah,
and now she's still listening. But also she has those habits, even just like $5-10 a week, she could do that with a little amount of money. When she gets hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars, she'll be able to go and do that then because her habits are already in place.
Exactly. And that's like, we do a lot of fun stuff, skiing and climbing and biking. And a lot of that's during the day when other people aren't around. And so she sees that too. And she sees how you could have fun if you're responsible and you're not stuck at a desk,
So like when you go also when she's in school or like,
yeah. So Chris and I will try to take a day to ourselves and just do whatever while she's in school. And then she has half day Fridays. And so we pick her right up from school and go right skiing, or this time of year, it would have been climbing. But now she actually, because after COVID, things changed a little bit. She has Fridays off. So we'll do something all day Friday with her.
Yeah, she has a pretty cool life. I'm envious. I wish we could have done that.
I know. She's well traveled. She does a lot of adventure stuff, and she's only 8. It's crazy.
So much fun. God. Okay, so you want to, Chris, tell us about the FIRE method that you use?
Yeah, so FIRE is just financial independence, retire early. And basically kind of the key concept is you save a big percentage of your income and then you put that into investments that will support you forever so you don't have to work. And so like the math of it is pretty simple. Like if you save 50%, which is kind of what we did, in about 17 years, you should have enough to be financially independent, assuming pretty modest returns. And again, that's kind of, it worked out pretty much exactly for us, despite making some mistakes along the way and not really having a plan. So it works mathematically. But I think what a lot of people don't think about is it's hard because like to save 50%, like for a lot of people, like they consider that sacrifice. And for us, like I said, it wasn't, it was easy
Started like
because
that. Yeah.
we started like that and it was security. And then, so a lot of people will find this and they'll get like super like gung ho on it and try to like cut everything out. And then first off, they kind of make themselves miserable because they're not like building their lifestyle intentionally. They're just trying to get there as fast as they can. And then even if you can get there, you get there because again, it took us 16, 17 years to do it. So it's not like this crash diet, like overnight success thing. And so when you get to that point, then all of a sudden now you have to start spending your money, but you're very comfortable being a saver. And so that's kind of terrifying, right? So like what we've kind of managed to do is kind of not focus so much on the retirement thing that I think people get overly focused on. And we've kind of just focused on like, how can you start to use your money more quickly to build a better life? And so like you mentioned, like right now I wrote a book, I write the blog, so I make some income. Kim continues to work part-time, but she has a work from home job. We live in Utah, but her company's actually in Washington, DC. So she has a ton of flexibility other than a few specific meetings she has to be at. And so like we do have a ton of time. Like this week, she's going to a movie. It's our last week of school as we're recording this. And she's going to a movie with our daughter one day.
For the field trip.
For a field trip. And I'm going one day for like, they have this outdoor field day and we volunteer all the time with our daughter. We do stuff together outdoors. We do stuff with our daughter. And we just have this lifestyle that we're able to build. But I mean, people will criticize and say, well, you're not really retired because your wife still works part-time or you're just changed careers and now you're a writer. And it's like, well, we do make about 40% of what we did at our max, but we're still living very comfortably and we're doing the stuff we want to do. So if that's like not really retired, then so be it. I'll plead guilty to that.
Right. Like, what do you want to be like? Just like sit all day and do nothing. Like, even if you travel, even if you do stuff, like anyone who travels full time makes money from traveling full time, so whatever you're going to do, you're not just like going to want to just sit and lay in bed all day for the rest of your life. So
I hope not.
Yeah, exactly. I would go crazy. I'd go absolutely nuts. I need to be doing something all the time. And I think for me, I mean, I enjoy my work. It's what I went to school for. And I got really lucky with this company that I work for because they're great. And the stuff that I work on is so challenging. And I love that mental challenge. I wouldn't want to be fully retired and give all that up. So
it's really about how, like you said, the financial independence, the financial like freedom for you to be able to decide, what am I doing? When am I going? And probably also get like more flexibility of like, if you don't want to work today, you want to go take a trip, you want to go somewhere easier, even though it's like part-time, it probably isn't like so much set hours or things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had the freedom to, because of our financial situation, I had the freedom to, when we had our daughter, I cut back from full-time to just 32 hours a week. And then I keep kind of cutting back. But yes, I have that freedom to do that. And I still get to do what I love to do. I know a lot of people think math is horrible. I love it.
Personally, it's the only subject I did well in school.
Yeah. And I like that challenge. I like the way that I have to think and I don't know. So yeah, I'm happy with it. But because of our situation, he was able to retire from physical therapy and do the book and do the blog and kind of pursue something different. I was able to go part-time and yeah.
Yeah. And again, like it's kind of going to be different for everybody. Like for me, it was retiring because I was a physical therapist. And when you're a physical therapist, I mean, people tend to come 2 or 3 days a week. And so it's kind of hard to kind of have the flexibility with your schedule like she has. And I was just burnout. I was like, in addition to the time demands on the job, I was just burnout on the American healthcare system. And I just didn't want to do that. But again, like if you're somebody that's motivated and you're doing things and you're productive to the point where you can retire mathematically at 40. Like psychologically, you probably can't. And like I still miss certain aspects of being a physical therapist. I miss that one-on-one. I miss the idea of helping people. And so I get some of that through my writing, like the helping people. But I still miss that interaction, especially like with COVID in the last year. It's been just crazy. And I kind of went through a little bout of depression. And so like I'm looking at ways now, like, do I maybe want to become a CFP, like a financial planner, or do I maybe want to do some financial coaching where I replace some of those things that I did as a therapist, but instead of seeing people 3 times a week, you're seeing them 3 times a year. And it's much more flexible and I can kind of work it around my schedule. So
Right,
yeah, we're
like
still
today
kind of
doesn't
figuring
work,
that
push
out.
it off for next week or
Yeah. But the idea that like you should decide in high school what you want to do and then do it for 50 years, and then you want to retire and do nothing for 20 or 30 years, it just doesn't even make sense. But I think a lot of times people just don't step back and question these assumptions that really drive most people's life.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you say 50%, what do you recommend doing with that money?
So it really depends. So like in the book, I wrote 3 chapters about investing better. And so if you are going to be able to save 50%, that means that kind of implies that you either are very frugal or you have a above average income or a combination, which was kind of our story is kind of the combination. And if you do that, it works just kind of do traditional stock bond investments. The key thing is we recommend like doing index funds, which are very tax efficient. They're very low cost, and there's something you can do yourself. It doesn't take a lot of time or energy. But to make that work, you really have to have that high savings rate. Um, a lot of people just can't do it. Maybe they live in a high cost of living area where housing's expensive. Maybe they have larger families. Maybe they have a background where they have to help their parents, or they have a child with a disability or something like that. So there's other paths to invest. And the other things I think you can do reliably are like real estate. So slowly building up a portfolio of rental houses or buildings or however you want to do it. There's multiple things, but you can apply leverage that way by taking loans. There's much more tax advantages. They produce much more income. So, but it's not passive. It's not something you just buy once and check your computer screen once a year. You have to put some effort into it. And then the third thing is investing in your own business. And that can mean buying a franchise, building something out, or something like I'm doing now in quote unquote retirement, where it's like a lifestyle business where, I write and I kind of do things what I want, but it produces some income, and it's not a lot of income compared to my career, but compared to like bonds that pay 1% at the moment. Yeah, I mean, a couple of $1,000s a month goes a long way towards like improving your lifestyle. So there's different paths, and those are the three: is stocks and bonds, real estate, and your own business.
And you do all three?
We really don't do real estate. We did for a year. We bought our house here and we rented it, and it's something we consider, but I don't know. The market is it's tough right now. Like everything's expensive. Housing is expensive. Stocks are expensive. Bonds
And
have
now's the
really
time to sell your
low
house and buy
interest. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So it's just tough time to get started. So we're kind of sticking with what we were doing because we already have a portfolio of stocks and bonds, and then just kind of building the income streams through doing some part-time work or, like I said, hobby business or things like that.
That's fun. Now, your bond investments, those you did completely by yourself, or did you get any financial advisor?
Mm.
So like I gave my parents a lot of credit for like instilling good values with money. But as far as like the technical aspects, like so when we started like our careers, we were making each kind of combined what my parents made. And like I knew my parents did well enough that they helped both my brother and I through college. I knew that they were on pace for retirement. Like I knew that they were living fairly comfortably. So I just assumed that their advisor was awesome and doing all this stuff for them. And so we asked like what they were doing and if they could recommend him. And we went and just used their advisor. And after 10 years of like just getting really conflicted advice from him, we decided to figure this out on our own. And we kind of realized in retrospect that they did really well in spite of the advice they were receiving. And like, so yeah, we took over, and like now I do everything ourselves, and it's really not very hard at all. But we kind of bought in like hook, line, and sinker, like that investments are hard and you need an advisor, and tax planning is hard and you need help. And yeah, we made a lot of mistakes by not asking questions, and we really just didn't even know what questions to ask, I think.
We had no idea. We would just go in quarterly and he would review what happened, and we would just take his advice as far as what do we invest in, what do we do. And he's financial advisor. So he's kind of just selling you the funds that he's going to make commission on. Right. And so, yeah, once Chris got into this, he started digging into the fees that we were paying, those hidden costs, everything. And it just blows your mind how much money you throw away. And to me, it was overwhelming to say, okay, we could do this on our own. Let's go invest. My parents didn't invest in anything. They barely had a savings at the bank, And so to me, the idea of investing in the market was just crazy. That's what people in New York do, not us, And but then Chris started reading all these books and he said, we could do this and let's make a plan together of how we'd want to invest. And we did that with allocations and everything. I had read one or two of the books that he read. He asked me to read it so that we could put our minds together and decide how do we want to invest going forward. And yeah, it was at first, I remember telling him, I said, well, let's at least have the advisor look over what we're going to do and get his recommendation. Like, are we going down the right path? Is this stupid? Whatever. He said, no, we could do this. And so we never did that and everything worked out well. I mean, Chris just became so smart and knowledgeable in this, but I mean, it's all self-taught. And yeah, so I definitely see anybody could take this on if you have the time to if you want to take the time to read.
Take the time, exactly.
And educate yourself. Yeah.
And to be fair, I think I came to that conclusion ahead of her and I pushed her that we need to do this ourselves. But my initial reaction was when I realized and in retrospect, we didn't get ripped off by our advisor. We got standard advice. If you go to any advisor, that's pretty much the advice you're going to get because there's just conflicts of interest that they have. Their income is your fees. And so your interest is to keep as much as your money as you can to lower your fees. And their interest is to charge as high as fees because that's their income. And so my initial reaction though, I was as overwhelmed as she was. And even though I realized we're kind of getting screwed here, my initial thing was we just got to find a better advisor until I realized that the conflicts are there for everybody. And so we kind of needed to do it ourselves. But yeah, I wasn't eager to learn this stuff. I was just overwhelmed at first. And there's a few resources that, once you read some things and discover some things, it's just not hard. But so much of the media wants to make it seem.
You could recommend?
Yeah. So for investing, there's a group called the Bogleheads. And there's a guy named John Bogle, and he started the company Vanguard. And so these quote unquote Bogleheads, they're people that follow him religiously because he's just done so much for individual investors. And so anything by the man named John Bogle, he recently passed away, but not only is he just a brilliant investing mind, but he's a great communicator. His books are actually pretty interesting to read. And then somebody that ties this to the FIRE movement is a guy named J.L. Collins. And his book is called The Simple Path to Wealth. And he also has a blog. It's jlcollins.com, I think. But those two resources, those two guys really just opened my eyes that this doesn't have to be that difficult. And learning about index funds and just how to come up with a plan and just stick with it. And it doesn't have to be complicated. So I think those two resources, anything by John Bogle or the Bogleheads, and then J.L. Collins, really kind of made it accessible for me. And then what I kind of want to do with my own book is kind of not everybody can save that much. So, I mean, that works for anybody investing, but you won't get there fast enough unless you can save a lot of money. So I also wanted to kind of, what we did in our book is we took different people who've done it with different paths, maybe people that didn't have as much income or people that did live in more expensive areas and couldn't save. And we just took a bunch of stories and said okay, these are all the different techniques you can use to spend less, all the different techniques to earn more, all the different ways you could invest reliably and confidently, and put it all together. So that's kind of what we try to do with the book.
Pick and choose what works best for them.
Yep.
Now, do you at what point do you pull out your money? Are you going to say okay, I'm taking it out of this investment, or you're just leave them in there?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the $1 million question. Again, for us, it felt comfortable saving. And when we got to that point, it was well, how do we start doing this? How do we start spending? And so kind of what we've done is, and I actually just wrote about this very recently, but so we kind of talked about, we always saved a salary and spent a salary. And so now that we're at this point where, at least on paper, we should be able to retire and it should sustain us forever, but it's kind of terrifying. So kind of what we've done is we looked at how can we produce an income that we can live off of, and then how can our investments, can they produce it? And so we still kind of have that redundancy. Like we're still basically saving 50%, but instead of both of us working full time, we're only earning a much smaller income, and then our investments are producing an income. And the nice thing, like once you get to that point where you don't have to earn income, like our tax system it's not friendly if you're a high earner, but it's very friendly if you're an investor. So your investments, like we basically pay 0% on any of our investment income, which is pretty favorable. And like even as we earn less, our earned income is taxed much more efficiently. And so yeah, it kind of just works out really nice where it's not a proportional thing where we cut half of our income. We cut one of our salaries, so we cut half of our income. We actually keep much more money because you're taxed much more efficiently when you earn less. So it works out pretty nicely so far.
So now, how has been able managing your money so well? Like, how did that have an effect on your marriage? So many people fight so much about money, and it's like a really big problem in their relationship.
Well, if we believe it or not, even in the situation we're in, we still fight about money. But it's more so because with my background, I have that fear of spending down our investments because I want that security. I want to know that we have money. And he gets frustrated with me because he said, "You're the math person. You should just be able to see it's okay." And I could see that, and I trust him. I told you he's very knowledgeable and he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, I feel like you just don't know what's going to happen with the market. You saw what happened with COVID. You saw what happened with housing issues that happened years ago where we had the crash. And so, yeah, you have this much money now, but it just takes one event and half your money could be gone, And so like I have those concerns where, yeah, I see the numbers are good, but anything could happen at any point. And so that's kind of one of our issues. He's telling me, it's okay to start just taking out if we need to take out. And that's why we have it there. But when I was working in the actuarial field, we had one guy that was going to retire, and I was working on his plan. So it wasn't someone I worked with, but his plan was to retire. So we were figuring out calculations for him. And that was right around the September 11th attacks. And so things just kind of crashed out and hit rock bottom there. So he went from I'm retiring within 2 months to he lost more than half of his savings and he couldn't retire anymore. And believe it or not, that still sticks with me 20 years later. I didn't even know this person. He was a client. But I saw like, wow, how fast that could happen because he was at retirement age. I mean, not, I guess necessarily retirement age, but I think he was late 50s. And so he was ready to be done and live life. And yeah, so I think that kind of stuck. But I think that's what if we do fight about money, that's what the fight is now.
Yeah, I mean, I would answer that question even a little bit different. Like, so when we were starting out, we had nothing. We were poor and we didn't fight about money at all because we were on the same page. Like we were both working through school and, developing our skills. And then once we started, like I offered to help pay her loan. She offered to support me. Like we kind of had a system that it wasn't an equal 50-50, but we were each contributing and we were each on the same page. And then throughout, like her needs for security, I think were met. Like we were saving a whole salary. Every time you get a statement, even if the market went down, we were saving so much. Our net worth was going up. Our mortgage was going down. Like, so we were making progress. So she had that security. And at the same time, like I was always more adventuresome and I wanted to be doing stuff. And I was able to do kind of whatever I wanted. Like we went to concerts, we went to sporting events, we traveled. And so really we didn't have conflict at all until we started getting close to this financial independence. Like we had more than ever. So in theory, there should be nothing to fight about. And that's when we really started to fight about money. And so like, I think like my advice to other couples is just really like kind of understand where your feelings about money come from and to kind of be sensitive to your partner. Like you're going to have very different experiences. And there's a lot of emotion tied around that. And like, that was something that was hard for me because like, to me, she is a math person. Like she has a MBA and a math degree and a degree in operations research, which is like all about crunching numbers. And like, it should be so easy to see it, but those emotions are so strong that, it was very hard for her, and it created tension. And then like for me, because she didn't want to spend anything, I kind of was feeling like hemmed in and trapped, and yeah, so it just created all this tension. So I think to figure that out, and like for us, I mean, it meant sitting down with a marriage counselor, and because it was just, we had to kind of dive into that stuff, but I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. It's just who you are and how you grew up, and just kind of figuring that out and having empathy for your partner, I think, is very important.
That was, I think, key. I think that helped a lot when we started seeing the marriage counselor. Like, she kind of took us back to our childhoods and just helped us to realize. But doing this together, he got to see my emotions and my feelings when we talked about it, and I got to see his. I kind of saw a different side of him with these sessions, and it's just an eye opener. And even now, if we do have an argument or disagreement about something, I picture some of those sessions that we had with her, where it's almost like I'm talking to the person where his fears are. I think he looks at me the same way. He now has a better understanding of why I'm so emotionally driven with some of this. And yeah, I think that was very helpful, because now we still get frustrated with each other, don't get me wrong, but we have the empathy for each other, and we have the background. Like, okay, he's feeling this because this is how he grew up. I'm feeling this because this is how I grew up, and you're going to clash sometimes, but at least you have that understanding rather than just go into attack mode,
Yeah, there's always a reason why a person is behaving that way, and now you could really understand that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we get on to our final question, where else, Chris, can people connect with you, learn more about you, get your book?
Yeah, so I think for people just kind of intrigued by this and just kind of hearing about financial independence for the first time, the book is Choose FI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. And you can find that on Amazon or anywhere you find books. And it was really written for people kind of, I wrote it for that 20-year-old version of myself. So kind of sharing the lessons, things that I've done right and that other people in this community have done right, and also things that would have saved us a ton of time and energy of money and mistakes that we made because we didn't realize all these things that we've learned over the last 20 years, and also taken from this community, this financial independence community that very generously shared their stories. So the book is Choose FI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. And then my home on the internet is a blog called Can I Retire Yet? And again, like I kind of found the blog. I didn't start it. And I kind of found it because I was asking that question. And I think I was overemphasizing retirement. And so we do look about, do you have enough money to retire? Or like for people that are looking to make that transition, or is retirement even the right decision for you? That's the kind of the stuff we cover on the blog. And if you wanted to find me, that's the easiest place. You can just come to the blog, and I have a contact and a comments section and everything. And I'm very responsive, and I take care of all that.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you. Okay. So for our final question, how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, trust, or intimacy?
Ooh.
Friendship. I think that is your best friend. It's the person that you just want to be with all the time, not because you have to be, but because you want to be. You want to sit on the couch with them. You want to go for a hike with them. You want to just be there all the time. You want to be there when they're hurting. You want to be everything that the best friend could be. I think that's an extraordinary relationship.
I like it. I'm gonna say ditto.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris and Kim. This was amazing. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your value with us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking. This is the first time we've ever done an interview together, so it was fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of the Life Picks University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.